Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you? Then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. And there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now, we are joined by Neil and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server, so welcome one and all.
Is there a new format?
What do you mean?
Good morning, everyone.
What happened to the pre-show?
The pre-show we did, you were here, so was Wandek. He came in and disappeared, and then you came, and then I started the live show. I just started particularly late because I've got a lot on my plate at the moment. Lots of stuff going on. Very, very busy, Neil, that's all it is. So I started at about 20 to the hour rather than on the hour, with an hour to go, if you know what I mean.
Very good. Let's get on with it.
I mean, it's a Friday, so it's a very relaxed atmosphere, generally speaking. No pun intended. Obviously, we don't have sphere-shaped air. When I refer to atmosphere, I'm talking about the ambience of the surrounding people in this particular Hangout and Discord server currently, as opposed to sphere-shaped air around a ball in a sky vacuum, which isn't possible.
We had a conversation yesterday because after you left, and we should do, of course, it's up to you, you're the boss, it's your show, but maybe if we just do the housekeeping questions once a week, because when you keep your house is kept, and then weekly you do a detailed cleaning. So we've kept house for years. I figure every Friday we can come in and keep house a little bit.
Okay, I mean, we did
yesterday. We don't do it today, but I'm saying in the future.
Yeah, so what you're saying is when it gets to a Friday, go through the housekeeping, because I remember not so long ago watching a little expose of how the Labour government in the 90s ran their general day-to-day affairs when it came to public relations and media communication. And any good news would be put out to the public on a Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday when everyone's receptive. And then any bad news would be buried in a Thursday or a Friday. Now, it wasn't necessarily a very successful government, but by the same token, that was their regime in terms of putting information out there. So from that perspective, you think, okay, fine. So if we're going to do something that's more, let's call it mundane, maybe the Friday is the right time to do it. And then, you know, when there's more generalized participation from our audience or from the Discord server, that'll be in the beginning half of the week as opposed to the latter half of the week. So I'm up for that. If you want to do a reminder on a Thursday or a Friday to do the housekeeping questions, I can more than happily go through them each time we get to the latter part of the week, and that'll be it. Great. I've got no issue with that.
All right, so we'll remind you on like Wednesday or Thursday to maintain Friday for housekeeping. Sounds good.
I mentioned this yesterday, but without naming names, somebody got in touch and was like, if the debate's over, how are we going to get to see you smashing the ballers? And this person wasn't saying it from the perspective that they want to keep a Discord server running, or even that they were going to suddenly abandon me because the debate's over. I mean, it's been over for a couple of years when we started going through the rhetoric of Earth being measured flat in all instances. And in the pre-show, we were talking about Grok and Gemini giving those sorts of responses. That's to say, yes, of course we measure Earth flat in all instances. Yes, you've just given me 24 examples of how we'll navigate by measuring Earth flat. But that's because it's a ball, is what Gemini comes up with. And it's just echoing the general sentiment of the world, which is to say there's a worldview that we're on a ball, and also we measure Earth flat. Therefore, it somehow has to combine those two incongruent facts in a kind of overtly cognitively dissonant manner when presenting it to somebody who's asking from the perspective of a flat earther about the flat Earth measurements, because it can see where you're going or where you're trying to lead it in your questioning when it scrapes the data from all the people who are prevalent in this subject matter, talking about or responding to how we point out in the context of the debate Earth is measured flat, and therefore there must be responses to scrape that say, because it's a really big ball, we measure Earth flat. So that's the sentiment that it echoes. Now, over the last few shows, I've been pointing out, well, that's not how generally people behave when they're dealing with things like navigation. They just navigate and measure the Earth flat. And then they find their way home, and praise be to Jesus, they're not dead in the water because they use the flat Earth measurements to find their way home. They don't go, well, I know I'm going to measure Earth flat to find my way home, but that's only because it's already... Nobody does that. They just measure it flat and go home.
Same thing with pilots. They just fly and go home. They don't fly around the globe. They're never even thinking of that.
Yeah, but did they realize they were on a globe? That's the thing. Were they thinking they were on a globe when they were doing their navigation? Because, I mean, was the globe a thing back then? Was it, do you understand what I'm saying? Because even today's navigators, they're navigating on a flat Earth, but some of them don't realize the Earth is flat. They think they're on a globe.
Well,
they carry that mentality.
There's a couple of ways to answer you. So if you look at Little House on the Prairie, there was an episode where their priest is still teaching that the Earth is measured and navigated flat. And the young woman upstart parishioner tells the priest that he's wrong and that actually Earth's a big ball. Now, the sentiment that's being put across is that in some arse ends of the States, the old school rhetoric of Earth being navigated flat because it's flat was still in the education system, albeit in a very wholesome Little House on the Prairie way, to be corrected by somebody for the audience. Now, obviously, I'm not using that as a historical standard, but for that to make sense at all, there must have been some notion of a flat Earth being out there. All credit also to David Weiss, who about 5 years ago interviewed a very elderly lady, well into her hundreds, who explained that when she was in school, she was taught that Earth was flat. So from those two pieces of information, I would suggest that to some degree, the notion of a flat Earth was still hanging around about 100 years ago. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that's the impression I get. Now, given that the actual heliocentric rhetoric came into full effect about 300 years ago, and that the idea only materialised seemingly about 500 years ago, you could suggest that it would take that long for it to become a mainstream narrative at all. Therefore, in some parts of the world where communication is a bit lackluster, they wouldn't find out that the general world consensus view is that we're on a ball until much, much later. Now, obviously, as communication lines open up and the modern age gives us the ability to communicate at a rapid pace, you can imagine that that world religion becomes prevalent everywhere on the known surface of the flat territory we all dwell atop at a more rapid pace, and therefore everyone else who's seemingly backwards because they don't know Earth's measured flat but is actually a really big ball, they'd find out through the better communications that we have in the modern times. So to answer your question, I don't know, but I would speculate that we only had full conversion to a one world religion of ball faith about 100 years ago. Hopefully that's a pretty full and not necessarily concise, but certainly a full answer to your question, Jim.
I got something.
Thanks.
Hold on,
Yeah,
I got
thanks.
something
Hang on a
here.
minute. Sorry. Oh, go ahead then, Neil. Go on.
Heliocentrism was taught in schools primarily during the 18th and 19th centuries, after it became widely accepted and the Catholic Church officially permitted its publication. The concept was introduced by Copernicus in 1543, but is accepted by acceptance was a gradual process involving advancements, listen to this, by scientists like Kepler and Galileo, and a long period of debate with religious institutions.
Considering I did not have AI on a search in front of me, would you not say I did a pretty outstanding job of summarising what Neil just put in a lot more concise terms from AI?
That's what I read it for, because you were right on point.
Yeah. Not bad.
Not bad? I did that completely off
482
off the
years
top of my head.
That is the Copernicus idea. It's 482 years and counting. Okay,
Yeah, but it wasn't being taught.
I said
It wasn't being
500.
taught in schools.
I was, 18 years out? I mean, come on.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. That's what I'm saying. Not bad. Thank you.
Not bad. That was completely off the top of my head without any prompting. I think that's outstanding. I think I'm ace, obviously.
Now, the other thing that the lady that Dave Weiss interviewed, she was 102 years old, by the way, because I know that. She said it. She was 102 years old, and that they were taught flat Earth all the way. And when the globe came in, she was like confused. Why did they bring the globe in? She said, and then she broke into tears because Dave Weiss said, "No, your original education was the correct one." And she broke into tears, didn't she? Because she realised it was the truth all along.
It gives me goosebumps just you reminding it that as much as we give Dave a lot of stick about his rhetoric and his laziness, it's what it is. He's not with the flat Earth debate. He's not up to date. He just goes with the old school and sticks with it because he's got his little script. Now, by script, I don't mean he's got a piece of paper with words on it that's been given to him by Big Daddy government. That's not what I mean. When I say script, the creature does what made the creature successful. That's one of the terminologies used by the behaviour panel specifically, in terms of when they're describing how people will do what they've done previously because it was affording them success. I'm sure you wouldn't know what I was talking about, Jin. Anyway, Dave's script calls for him to go through aspects that we now say are redundant. Now, hopefully that will change with time. But to his credit, when he gets out there and does interviews like that one, you've got to hand it to the man, right? Dave, my hat is off to you when it comes to things like that. You're in a class of your own.
I think it'd be interesting to, obviously, we're saying the lady who was 100 and whatever years old, she was taught that Earth was flat. I wonder in the teaching if there was any sort of talk or description of measurement of flat Earth as we have now, apparently. Got, the Eratosthenes, we talked about Eratosthenes and Al-Biruni, how they apparently measured Earth flat. Measured the globe, but they actually measured it flat. I wonder if there's any descriptions of measurement when people were being taught flat Earth. I wonder what the evidence was to support that 100 years ago in the teaching arena.
Sorry, say the last bit again. I was distracted by somebody telling me a microphone doesn't have a squished head. Sorry, say that again.
No, I'm just saying, like, we taught, like, they taught Earth's a globe, and we've got measurements from Eratosthenes and Al-Biruni, even though we know that's flat Earth measurements. 100 years ago, when apparently he was being taught Earth was flat, I wonder how they was sort of backing that up in an educational environment.
I think you're
was any measurements involved?
Yeah, it's not an if or a because, it's a why. Why would you be taught Earth to be a flat plane? Well, because that's the obvious and observable nature when measuring Earth. So it's kind of a malformed question because it would seem obvious to explain how Earth is being utilised, and then there's just a default position that means it's flat. You wouldn't have to overtly state it. So I would imagine that anybody who, like the 102-year-old lady we're discussing that Dave Weiss interviewed, went through her education system without explicitly being told, well, that's because Earth's flat. You don't have to say that. You know what I mean? You don't have to describe...
Yeah.
The official rhetoric of globe... Go ahead, you go first.
I'm just saying, like, you know what you mean, really. You don't have to back it up as, like, it's a globe and this is how... It's flat. You know it's flat. That's how you live your everyday life. That's how you... Like you just said, Nathan, yeah, maybe there wasn't so much emphasis on, well, we have to tell you exactly how it is flat, how it's measured. It's just obvious.
Seems like they
That's
were
how we-
teaching flat Earth long into almost the 19th century. Because it says the teaching of globes in schools expanded significantly in the 19th century, becoming a formal part of geography education in the United States around the second half of the century. While globes were used historically by astronomers, really, and navigators, really. So this is not even true. You're going to tell me they were using a globe to navigate? I'd
Yeah.
like to see that.
Sextant only works on a globe, Neil.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm telling you, in 1969 when they pulled that sham off with Neil Armstrong and then it was locked in. Now we have the video evidence of the ball that we all live on. Public schools general geography lessons became more widespread during this period. So it's the second half of the 19th century. That's when they started teaching globes. You want a globe from fourth grade on. I was taught a lot earlier than that.
I can't particularly remember any heavy school lessons in geography or whatever subjects it may have come under that heavily went into the shape of the Earth.
Well,
You know,
it says here,
like-
turn of the 20th century, the production and use of globes continued to be a feature of American classrooms as a way to teach terrestrial geography.
I mean, if you want to pretend you live on a globe, that's fine. But when you're getting from A to B, the distances and the mapping will have been derived from flat Earth measurements to get you to A to B. But if you want to think that's a ball now, that's up to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it gets really weird because I guarantee you, back in let's say 1903, I guarantee most of the schools were not teaching that we lived on a globe.
But you have to go out of your way to teach that, is what I'm saying, when it comes to the comparison to somebody being potentially, speculatively taught it 100 years ago, say. That person, why would you need to explicitly state that you're on a flat Earth when you describe, I don't know, measuring an elevation angle? But for the fact that we have a contrary position that defies the measurements, there's no need to state it. That's kind of my shtick at the moment in terms of how I say we should debate this. Why encourage our opponents by telling them how their positive assertion fails by pointing out how Earth is measured flat? We don't have to point out that their assertion exists. You just have to point out that Earth is measured flat. Now, when you point it out to Grok, it'll agree with you and then simply strap on the end that, well, it's still a ball, though. Because there's no defeat to the actual facts when it comes to the measurements. You can't disagree with the fact we're measuring Earth flat. But as I keep saying, you don't need to explicitly state that if you're teaching just how functionally flat we operate when we're measuring Earth. You just teach how you functionally utilise the surface of Earth. You don't say, well, here's us measuring a flat Earth elevation angle. You just go, this is how an elevation angle's measured. Likewise, in debate, why would I say Earth's not a sphere because we measure it flat, when I can just say Earth's measured flat? Because it is. I say the latter is less triggering. For anybody who hears me saying, well, we measure Earth flat to acquire an elevation angle. We measure Earth flat when we measure the heights or depressions of the land with respect to sea level. We measure Earth flat when in straight and level flight. We measure Earth flat when we measure our eye level parallel to surface level. We measure Earth flat when we measure our altitude with respect to surface level, perpendicular to it. All of those statements of fact stand in isolation. Now, to appease someone like Jin, I include the statement that we are measuring Earth flat. But even that is redundant. Like, it's not necessary to point out that we measure Earth flat. We just measure Earth with elevation angles off a flat surface level. We just measure straight and level flight. I don't have to say Earth is measured flat because of straight and level flight. We just measure straight and level flight. That's what it's termed by the people flying planes. You don't get ground control telling the pilot, please ascend to flat Earth flight level 2055 or whatever it is they give us their flight level. You just hear them given the flight level. Not, please ascend to flat Earth flight level XYZ, do you? Because it's redundant. I say the flat Earth redundancy will be negated within the next 100 years. You can't get away from how Earth is measured. And cognitively,
Yeah, that's true.
It's too difficult for most people who are dedicated to their ball Earth religion to cognitively cope with how flat Earth is measured, as we're finding.
Yeah, so hence you're going to need to, from time to time, just elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by the Earth is measured flat, just because some people won't get it. That's, and as you've just stated, it will take about 100 years before it becomes redundant. Okay, well, until that time, I will continue as I normally do, operate as normal, explaining when necessary. That's the way I operate. I always will.
But included in my statements is the redundant fact that Earth is measured flat when you're just measuring Earth at surface level for the sake of argument with elevation angles. If I say when we measure an elevation angle, we form a line along the surface and a line up to the light in the sky that we're measuring. That is a complete statement.
Yeah. But if you're having a discussion about the heliocentric model and how we're not able to measure curvature now, that's when you're going to be explaining it a little bit more, which often happens, doesn't it? That's the point, you see. So, you know, when you meet people, that's what I end up doing anyway.
Yeah, if you don't start out with explaining to them how Earth is measured flat, yeah, you're going to go into looking for curvature.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens all the time.
If they believe they live on a ball, then they're going to obviously, they may or may not have some sort of notion of how that was measured. So I always ask them, you know, how was it measured then, in your opinion? And they may use the Eratosthenes example, and then we could slowly talk through that and explain that at no point during that process was curvature measured. So,
yeah, you see,
you know,
that's excellent. Excellent.
I go the other way. Go ahead, Jen. You go first.
Sorry, I was going to say that's excellent, one deck, because you still had to tell them. You see, you didn't mention there was no curvature measured in all that. So you see, you're still helping them. They're still learning.
If I take somebody and I break down how Earth is measured flat, then we go and take this long distance observation to show them how flat it is. If they mention curvature or I don't see the curve, I would simply say, what curve are you talking about? I just showed you how Earth is measured flat, and you just are looking for yourself how Earth is flat. Why are you asking me about a curve?
even the Earth curve calculator, that's got dimensions. It's telling you the circumference of the so-called Earth, the diameter and the radius. Now, and then it calculates how far you should or shouldn't be seen, depending on them measurements. But how was it measured?
Flat. I was about to interrupt Neil, but I chose not to. The distance measurement, when you say I'd make a long distance observation, oh yeah, as soon as you say distance, you're requiring a horizontal plane of reference to describe that horizontal linear measurement in miles or kilometres.
Correct. And that's exactly what you say to them. That's how they realise that they're not living on a globe.
No,
Thank you.
that's why you bring them to measurements first before you show them the observation. Of course, the observation is flat. Of course, it's measured flat. I just explained to you how Earth was measured flat, and is by everybody. But you want to
Oh.
see for yourself, so here you go. Look at this distance. Oh, by the way, all flat. So what are they going to turn around and say? But the Earth curve calculator says I shouldn't see what I'm looking at?
No, that's just another backup. That's all. That's just another backup, giving them more information, more data. So you're giving them there. So that's all that is.
Most people don't even know about an Earth curve calculator. The
Exactly.
normal everyday Joe has no clue about an Earth curve calculator. You are showing them reality.
Yeah, you're showing them reality. Exactly that. But if they happen to want to know a little bit further on how to do it, then you can introduce them to the Earth calculator so they get it.
Why would I? I'm lost.
Well, no,
Why
it's
would
all
I
about
do that?
assisting them to understand. That's all. It's an assistance
No, but
in them to understand.
Hold on. When you
don't-
do that, you're assisting them to understand the globe.
No, to understand what they should be seeing if they were on a globe, but they're not seeing that because that's what you've just showed them evidently.
Stop.
Right in front of them.
Stop. Why would you want to assist them in what they should see on a globe that they're not on? That makes absolutely no sense, Jin. We've been trying to bang this into you for about last week.
Look, the individual thinks he or she thinks he's on a globe, right? They're on a globe. You've just shown them through a long distance observation. Neil says, I don't believe I don't see the code.
Hold on, slow down. Slow down.
It's all about hang on, I'm trying to speak.
Well,
I'm trying to speak.
I'm trying to lead you.
Thank you.
I'm trying to lead you, Jin.
Don't lead me. Let me lead myself.
I run the
Thank
show,
you.
Jin. So, yeah, I will bloody lead you, and you'll get lost if you don't like it.
Okay.
The distance.
I'll get lost in.
Okay, no worries. Very irritating.
So what I feel is all the information that's required is accurately captured in the official phrase that Nathan has coined, which is perspective hijacking, proof of nothing, begging the question, Earth curve calculator. That's all the information that you need to put across to any person bringing it up. That's all I think.
They even have to bring it up. I mean, if you are already just explaining what the measurements are, like, okay, you wanted to, basically you have a discussion with someone and they want to know if the Earth has a shape, whether it's sphere or whether it's flat. That would be their true dichotomy. You say, oh, okay, well, let's look how we measure it. Well, we measure it flat here. We take elevation angles to Polaris. That is also using elevation angles. That would also be a flat Earth measurement. So every instance, whenever you're doing any measurement in a practical sense, all measurements that you basically taking is flat. So therefore, the measurements in itself is telling us that it is flat. Now, there's no reason to go say, oh, well, let's look at this observation of a long distance or anything of that nature. But even if they do bring up long distances, you can say, oh, well, how are we measuring distances? Are we doing it in kilometers or miles? Those are linear measurements. So now we are using another flat Earth prerequisite once again, point that out. And then if they say, oh, well, let's grab this camera, they're like, oh, well, we already using flat Earth measurements in that instance as well. So it is never, so basically, if Jen is still here, what we're basically is saying is that this basically from the beginning, the prerequisite is that the Earth has to be flat because it's measured that way in its first instance. Now, it is up to the globe that have the positive claim of saying, no, that is actually wrong. What we're seeing is not true. And they have to bring up curve calculators, and they have to bring up things like tangents, which is also flat Earth measurements. They have to bring up those things. So it's not up for us to bring them up and show them how their globe don't work. It is up to them to bring it up and show how the globe do work, because that would be basically reversing the burden of proof.
Exactly.
I'm done.
So my frustration with Jin is because he's suggesting that upon acquisition of a distance measurement to an object via a camera, we should then take our opponent, who believes he's on a globe, to the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator to show them how it doesn't work when you're putting them on a globe to do so. Now you say, well, they're already on a globe. Well, okay, that's their burden for them to prove, not our burden to show how it's wrong. That is not incumbent upon us. It's incumbent upon them to demonstrate their belief is true. But when they do, the first thing they're going to do is input a value that's requiring a measurement from a flat planar surface. If you're out there listening, Jin, I'm sorry I snapped your head off. No need from my point of view. I apologise.
That's why I enjoy the Eratosthenes one, because it's partially their globe proof, and you're asking them, you think you live on a globe, what's your evidence of the measurements, Eratosthenes? And then, okay, then that's your proof that you live on a globe. Let's talk about them measurements and point out how they're not globe measurements. So that's, I'm not showing any photographs or you shouldn't see this, you shouldn't see that. You've given some evidence of a measurement. You're telling me it's globe measurement, and I'm going to show you exactly how it isn't.
Yeah, I don't understand why you go back and say on a globe, this is what you should see. You shouldn't see this on a globe, but you are seeing it. That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, just for Jin's bit, I mean, yeah, we're all sort of dealing with it that way. And I don't want Jin to feel like everyone's on his case, everyone's their own person, aren't they? Jin might deal with that way, which he can do if he decides to. No one's saying, you just do. But it's much. Why do that when you can just point out, let's have a look at all elevation profiles above sea level.
No, I am saying that specifically
and below sea
and explicitly to Jin, because he's in complete opposition to my current rhetoric. So my frustration is bore out in that fact, because he's like, I still want to introduce them to the begging the question calculator and show them how, if we measure Earth flat and we measure linear horizontal distance to an object that we shouldn't see because it's too far away, if we're on a globe, that's completely in contrast to my current rhetoric. Sorry, I bit your head off, Jin.
Yeah,
no worries, mate. No worries. Appreciate that. No worries.
The main reason I'm apologising is because I need you here. Your place is to be what you're being, which is, in old school terms, the person that wants to go to the calculator. I want you here to do that so I can contrast it. But I'm losing my temper because I lost a microphone that I was bidding on. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I like the modern ways. Don't put me down as an old-fashioned old fuddy-duddy, because I understand what you're putting forward. I'm just saying that there are other people out there that will need to have it explained to them step by step. And I'm always prepared to do that. Thank you, Jeroen.
Fair enough. Well, the housekeeping question,
You were talking?
We'll keep those rhetorics, if that's the right word. Those rhetorics? Can you pluralise rhetoric? Those rhetorical devices alive on a Thursday or Friday of each week. So as much as I know they are redundant, it doesn't alter that there's going to be people out there that have an old school way of dealing with these arguments. And they're not arguments. There never was an argument. To have an argument, you've got to first give them a flat earth, allow them to use that flat earth to build their ball belief, to then take their ball belief back off them. To me, that just seems bonkers.
Nathan, the globe was introduced in the 1400s or something. We just went through it, and it took a long time before they started, getting rid of teaching flat Earth. So it's going to take a long time. For the past 10 years, people have been debunking the globe. So it's going to take a little time for them to just start demonstrating how Earth is flat. You just got to hang in there.
It's going to be harder now to go back to it, because if you think back then, there was no television and CGI from NASA who lie through the teeth that they've been to a place called outer space. So, I mean, where do you go with all that if it finally, comes true?
Very true, one deck. And as you said, there is nothing to go back to. Who's going back?
Well, that's where I was going to go
back.
next. My question was going to be, who on their journey through flat Earth second guessed their, at the time, not recently, belief in a flat Earth. Who second guessed that? As in, could I be wrong? Could it not be flat? Could it actually be ball shaped?
Me.
Am I going to assume
No,
it's everyone?
No, not me. Once I realised that my error, that was it. It's common sense. It's logic. My experience. Never second guessed it. Someone even asked me, Jim, could you be wrong? No, I cannot be wrong in this thing. That's what I said.
That's amazing, because it wasn't until I started understanding what 10th Man was breaking down and conspiracy cats would I'll give you a flat Earth. That's when it really dropped for me that it really is flat, and there's no way it could ever be a globe because it's always been flat.
Yeah, there was a point that I reached that it was beyond all doubt, and there was no going back. But that wasn't immediate. You know, there was certain stages where I second guessed myself, and you can hear that in the early debates, where my frustration, like we did earlier, is being bore out in the Earth curve calculator debates, because it still is at that stage a debate. We're debating about how far we should see. Now, at the time, I didn't appreciate it, but how far we should see? Like some bleeding calculator is going to dictate how my eyeballs work. But that's what we were doing. And it leads you into a cognitive state where you can second guess yourself. Could I be wrong? No is the answer. Earth's just flat. That's how it's been utilised to create the ball that we now relinquished.
The bit that got me is when I said, so where do these straight lines turn into curving lines? Can someone give me that formulation, please? And still to this day, I've never got them.
Well, it was always water with me too, because I'd always go to water and be like, that would be my saving grace. When I had doubt, I would go to water. I'd be like, no, it can't be a globe because there's freaking thousands and thousands of miles of flat water.
And people
They
who
do.
work with water, because you also work in construction, Neil, right? So people who already work using water as a basis for their construction work find it so easy to understand, and at least it puzzles them that these two things cannot be true at the same time, that we build and construct miles and miles of fences and buildings based on measurement of water level. And in India, they do it in the very crude way, using a pipe in which they simply check the level of hot water for 30, 40 feet, step by step by step by step for, I don't know, for kilometers. So that's how it is done. And when I put across this same thing to that person, he was puzzled. I mean, the penny dropped then and there. He understood.
But Arthur, that didn't drop for me until we started talking about the sextant and measurements. Then it clicked. Then all the work I've done clicked. I'd be like, oh yeah, of course. I use a level.
See, for me, I was very fortunate that my mum and dad took me to Africa with my brothers. And it was, on the way back, we went by plane, but on the way back, we came back by ship. And that's a 2-week journey on the ocean. How many of you have been on the ocean for 2 weeks?
Not me.
So it galvanizes you that you see horizontality everywhere. So I was lucky that I had that journey. And I had that journey twice in my life, going to Nigeria. I did it in the reverse the second time round, just me and my dad. Okay, so I was lucky. But then when people like Nathan now are talking about it's measured flat, that's when you realize how it was always flat, because it's measured flat. It's always been measured flat. Yeah. So I was in no doubt at all. No doubt. Once I realized my error, that was it. Never looking back. That's what I said. People said, can you be wrong? No, I cannot be wrong. I said, no.
But we're also ushered into an argument about maps and cartography that is also semi-redundant. In terms of when we navigate using a map, the map and its purpose is generally pretty specific and will work in that function. But maps themselves generally have been used to distort, or I think the correct word is gerrymander, the lines that people own in terms of the territories, to create certain impressions in certain people when they're handed certain maps. So I can't remember the name of that Irish girl that we covered about a month ago, she was covering this recently, pointing out that the people who were encouraged to go over to the New World, that's the States, were told of how much opportunity they would be getting, and they were lied to by the cartographers with the maps. So there's a multitude of different reasons, whys and wherefores when it comes to how cartography is used to deceive the general public. And the maps don't just vanish. You just end up with thousands of maps. All incorrect. Because people have got agendas that they want to fulfill when they employ a cartographer to describe how certain land masses should be not mapped or measured, but how they should be presented to other people.
I mean, I'll always start off with this one when I say, I mean, the sea level thing, I'll tell you now. I mean, everything that goes on in this earth had to be developed around the fact that most of the earth is covered with flat level water. That's what we've had to work with from day one. And it's called sea level. Sorry, I mean mean sea level. The average level base, just in case we need to measure above the surface of this place. Heights put into place above and below the 0 degree base. Elevation now in place. Cartography, navigation, guiding the human race. Sea level. Sorry, I mean mean sea level. The standard base aviation travel, straight and level flight, that's right. Referencing altitude day and night. Sea level. Sorry, I mean mean sea level. One continuous body of water seeking level throughout the world.
Awesome.
Amazing. Bravo.
Also,
Amazing.
shout out,
And the way,
quick shout out to
Okay,
Level
go ahead.
Playing Poem just before you go, Arthur. I read out your email Level Playing Poem in the pre-show, so check that out when it comes out as a members-only video. And thank you for the sentiment. Although, from memory, unless I'm missing something, I haven't had a load of your poems sent to me via my email. I could be wrong about that, and it's just I'm very hazy at the moment, but you referenced poems that you've been sending me continuously, and I've not seen them. Now, like I say, I might be mistaken, but there we go. Big shout out to you. Sorry, Arthur. You
Oh,
can
wait.
carry on.
We got two
and
poets?
how,
Yes.
okay. And how pertinent was the part, the refrain of the poem where he says, sea level, oh, I'm sorry, mean sea level, because this is what I have encountered live with anti-flat earthers who focus on the mean part more than the level part. They always try to deflect to the mean part of it, except, so it was
It's only an average
almost
level.
funny.
So the average level must mean that there's hope. That's all it is, right? There's what I call grasping for straws, or grasping at straws is the terminology, meaning that if you're drowning and you're trying to reach up at the edge of the bank to grab those straws so you can breathe through them as you're slowly sinking into the water. Well, that's what they're doing when they're like, oh, well, it's only an averaged level. Yeah, it is. And? Well, that means it could be a ball. No, it doesn't. It means it's an average of a level because the seas are rising and falling continuously. They're not averaging out the curve for a level. That's preposterous and idiotic. But when you're seeking hope, that's what you'll grasp for. The average of the sea level. Therefore, what, potentially curving? No. Unfortunately for you, definitely not. In reality, it's just how Earth's measured. And yes, we average the sea level.
Yep. That's
I'm looking
Martha,
at one of
that's-
those Christmas globes right now, you know, the one with Santa Claus in it. You show me anywhere where that's level. So what they're trying to say is Earth is so big that it eventually levels off?
No,
That's
it's
an
a contradiction in
impossibility.
terms. One of the most defining features of anything spherical is that it has no level surfaces anywhere.
Thank you.
But Arthur, that's why I put that in there. I came across that a number of times. You're talking about sea level elevation profile. Well, not sea level, it's mean sea level. That's why I had a little bit of a joke with that. Sorry, I mean mean sea level, like I'm apologising because they need it. Well, they don't need it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just an average level. It's level at the end of the day, like Nathan's just explained. But yeah, that's exactly why it's in there and read that way.
Yeah, but Nathan's right. It's just that little bit of hope that they have because it says mean sea level. It's averaged. It could average out in our favor.
Yep,
It could average out. The average sea level could average out to be curved.
And it flies in the face of how they define level as equidistant from a center of a sphere.
Yeah.
How can both these things be true at the same time?
It's not. It's contradictory.
Equidistance, yes, this is what Grok tells me. That even the surface of any sphere, not just the sphere which is as big as the globe, presupposed globe, but any sphere has a level surface according to that definition. And Grok says, yes, that's true.
Oh boy.
In complete defiance of what something spherical would be.
Right, so they're going against, how do you say it? Axiomatic principles, Nathan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's an axiom of a ball, that it has no level surfaces. That's one of the axioms when describing anything spherical. Axiomatically, it can't have any level surfaces, or it's not a sphere.
But see, a sphere is the shape of the gods. That's why we live on a globe.
Maybe the gods' balls.
Yeah.
But just going back to the different approaches and, trying to guide people different ways like that. I mean, I've only encountered really hostile approaches, mainly as like Goki's being just in a psychological dilemma. That's the point I usually come to. When I have talked about it with friends and some family, it definitely doesn't get hostile. But like I say, one of my friends I spoke to the other month, it got to it. He was not an idiot by any means. He knows a little bit about, well, he thought he knew a bit about bending of space-time in the fourth dimension. But then he had to just end the conversation and sort of, we was out having a drink and he had to go home then. When I pointed out who had been to the fourth dimension to, put this through the scientific method. And he was stalling, and I could see his brain ticking, and he had to go. We didn't fall out, but that was a friend. So I've never encountered somebody legitimately interested and who takes on board what I would explain about sea level being the 0 degree baseline for all elevation profiles, and elevation angles to and from Polaris, and then all of a sudden the penny drops and they think, well, God, yeah, the Earth is flat. One deck. Thanks for this information.
My son goes the opposite direction. He comprehends all of that, but he points to the 2 points in the sky, 2 supposed opposite rotations.
Begging the question fallacy.
No matter how I explain it, I explain that to him. He says, I don't care. That can only happen on a sphere.
Why are they? It can only happen if you beg the question of them being opposite one another on an axis. So how does he validate his assumption of it being opposite? How does he prove that? Up is up, right? When you look at the sky and the lights in that area, they're always above you. For him to say, well, that only works on a sphere. What if the lights are below me? When does that happen?
When you're on that side of the ball, when you live on that side of the ball, that's why.
That's a begging the question fallacy. Without begging the question that when I travel south in a horizontal direction, that I'm actually travelling antipodal from where I began. You're not. That's not what south is. But if I assume south's down, it isn't. So it's a begging the question fallacy. So beyond an assumption that south is down, which violates the axiomatic principle of directionality, how can he validate the antipodal positioning he is assuming?
I understand that totally. I say the same thing. I'm going to play my son now. Well, then you explain how it happens.
What I did. The lights are above our head. Always, without exception. They're never below us. So what are you asking me to explain? How they're below us? They're not below us.
No, how I see 2-star rotations.
Well, you lose your eyeballs. How do I explain seeing things in the sky above us? You open your eyes and look at them. There you go. Explanation fulfilled. What's that? But if I assume that south is down and I'm antipodal in the south, then they're below me if I'm in the north? That's a bit of a mouthful based on a begging the question fallacy and a violation of what I actually experience. That would be the lights being above us, always, without exception.
You just don't understand relativity. So when I'm on the other side of this globe, I'm actually upright.
But that's begging the question. When do you say, when I'm on the other side of a globe? When I'm on the other side of the roast chicken? No, you don't get to just assume your outcome and say, well, but for the fact that I've assumed antipodal positioning and violated an axiom of down being south, then I'll say you can't explain this. It's like, so you've begged the question, you've affirmed the consequent, and now you're flipping the burden? No.
But they're showing me that the reason why I have these opposite rotations is because I'm on a globe.
No. What opposite rotations? They're always above your head, and all of the stars, save for Polaris, move in one direction.
That's pretty much where we're stuck at.
Okay, so your son wants to beg the question of antipodal positioning. Okay, well, that's fallacious. You can't argue with somebody who insists on utilising a fallacy. In this case, an antipodal assumption. Okay, assume you're antipodal then. You're not going to demonstrate how that's the case. Well then, how can I argue with you? You just want your religious belief based on a presupposition of antipodal positioning that you haven't demonstrated. Now, in terms of what we actually experience, we only experience the sky being above us.
Right. He has to assume that he's on a globe for all of this. See, he thinks that is confirming it, that he's seeing an opposite rotation.
That's affirming the consequent. If Earth is a sphere, then I will assume that we can see stars below us antipodal. When I go south, not down, I observe the stars also above us, but I've assumed I'm antipodal, therefore Earth's a sphere. That's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. No, you don't get to just assume if P then Q. Q, therefore P. No.
Yeah, and that's what's frustrating for me, because before we get into any of this, he understands how it's measured. So why do I even got to go into all of this? I keep taking him back with Jacob. We just went through, and you had to agree, because if you don't agree, then you're just being foolish. You agree that how we measure things, right? You agree that distances, heights, they all need a flat plane of reference to even get the distance or the height of anything.
Do you want to know what I'd advise,
why are you
Neil?
telling me about star rotation?
I would advise stop arguing with him. Take the... I was going to say Carl Jung. It's not Carl Jung, is it? Who's the guy that we were watching last week that was the philosopher and psychologist guy?
Alan Watt?
Watts.
Alan Watts.
Right. He was saying, if you're in a position, regardless if it's family or friends or over the bar, if you're engaging in the argument, you're offering him that hope. So just give up. Say, okay, believe you're on a ball. Fine.
Yeah, that's what we do. I'm talking about the last time we had this conversation was probably 6 months ago. It's not allowed at the dinner table no more. So what are you going to do? He'll come to an understanding when he's ready, or he may never be ready.
Or he's a heathen and going to hell. I mean, who cares? Just kidding, Neil. Or maybe I'm not.
He gets to the point where even in Joshua chapter 10, when Joshua bid the sun to stay still in the sky, he tells me that God gave them a bad omen. So I really don't know, what are you talking about, a bad omen? If that was the case, then Joshua would ask God to trick them. But he asked them specifically to give them more time to win a battle. And the only way to give them more time was to keep the daylight. And the sun stood out and it stopped.
I'm pretty sure Danny Faulkner covered this. He said that actually what God meant was that the earth had stopped. That the Bible text is incorrect. The word of God's wrong, says Danny Faulkner. Am I wrong? That is Danny Faulkner that did that, correct?
That's correct. He said actually God stopped the earth from rotating.
So that's what the word of God said, was it? Or is he just bastardizing the word of God like a complete heathen?
Yep, the latter.
I'm only joking. We love you, Danny, if you're out there listening. You bastardize the word of God all you like. You have my permission to change God's word to meet your ends when it comes to your religious belief that's in contrast with God's word. I mean, it's no big deal, right? Changing God's word's fine for a Christian, right? That's okay. No biggie. You just don't believe him, right? Just don't believe him. He just didn't phrase it well enough, you know? This omnipotent character just didn't have the words correct to describe it in the English language that you now need it to comport with. He just didn't have the right words. God, that is.
No, you know what he's going to do? He's going to turn around and say, well, they didn't know that the earth was a sphere back then.
God didn't know. God didn't know his own creation well enough to be able to describe it in Greek or Hebrew or English. He didn't have the words to describe his own freaking creation that he made. Yeah, that makes total sense. That checks out. Totally.
The thing about that is it says there was never a day like it ever again. So, I mean, it's historical. It's biblically, in the Bible, it's an historic event. But he turns around and says, no, actually, God stopped the earth from turning.
Actually... You ever seen those memes with the little neck beards going, actually, what God really meant was the earth stopped turning. It actually meant that there's never been an earth rotation like it since.
Well, don't forget, the iron core's turned round, in it. Was it a few years ago? It started rotating the other way, according to NASA.
Its self-perpetuation did an about face and went the opposite direction. Yeah, that checks out too. At the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth that we measure flat to create angles of latitude, like on this diagram on screen. The termination point where we'd measure the angle in hell at the molten iron core changed its direction so it could maintain its self-perpetuation in defiance of the Curie point, even though it's a just so story that we've never validated.
It makes you laugh, that, doesn't it? When you look at that, it's like the globe's there just going, I'm still here. You need me, but it's not actually doing anything.
No, you don't need it in this. You could describe the degree that you've measured the latitude with on this diagrammatical example where you've got an infinite distance to the stars when you're measuring, in this case, Polaris, for your latitude. Well, if you're measuring off a flat plane as depicted in this diagram, the globe isn't a map anymore. You're measuring from the surface, and that's not the globe. Now, they depict it this way to make people confused when they look at how flat the surface is when measuring a star from the ground level. Well, let's just put a ball around you. But what does that make the ball? The closest approximation to what you could describe this ball on screen as is a protractor.
Yeah, it's just funny how they've got to have it there. And let's just, hello, I'm still here, everybody. Don't forget about me. The water ball, which isn't being used at all.
What I find egregious is how heavily censored I am. It does piss me off, I've got to be honest, when I watch my second show not reach anybody. My second channel show, that's this show, the Uncut and After show. After the members have watched it, the limited audience that's very focused and keen obviously aren't going to necessarily want to go and watch it again on the second channel. Why would they? They've watched it already, and they've probably got a show that day to watch that's brand new, that's Uncut and After show. So why would you want to go to the second channel? So then the second channel is entirely dependent on people either being too tight-fisted to want to pay for my membership, but still simultaneously keen enough to want to watch the Uncut and After show, if you're a dedicated audience member of Nathan Oakley 1980. But like I say, most of them aren't tight-fisted. Quite the contrary, people are very generous. But that doesn't mean that they've got infinite amount of time to give me and dedicate to keep the numbers up in my second show. Why would they? So that second channel is entirely dependent on the views that it receives from the advertising given to it by being distributed by the owner of the platform. That's YouTube. And they don't. It's directly showing the censorship that we suffer. There is very limited scope for them to present it to anybody, because if they do, people would appreciate too quickly how flat Earth is measured in a context of the globe Earth seeming debate. So it just reaches nobody. It's like less than 20 people watch the show each day that it comes out on my second channel, much to my irritation. And then I get people telling me via other means, that's via communication systems that aren't YouTube, that's Skype or whatever Skype is now, Teams or whatever, Facebook Messenger, and they'll say, I did share your show, and then it vanished from Twitter. Then I moaned to Twitter, and seemingly it appeared again for about 15 minutes, and then vanished again. And you're like, oh my God. Now, I'm taking that's true. I haven't verified that that is the case. I'm just going by what somebody has messaged me with. And it's a third-hand account that I haven't verified, so don't, hold me to task on this. I'm just saying, from my perspective, why would somebody go out of their way to tell me that is the case unless it's something that they noticed? And given that plenty of people who are in the chat that are dedicated viewers will say, yeah, I have shared this. Okay, but the numbers didn't change. Typically, you share a show and you get a couple more people come along because you've shared it. Not on the second channel. Often people will share the show and the numbers will go down. You're like, what the hell is going on? Well, I know exactly what's going on. We're in a realm that is quite literally the most censored on YouTube. Now, you can't erase us completely because that would set off more alarm bells. You'd have the Streisand effect kick in if they erased us completely. So they bury us and don't offer us any support or any advertising, and they don't share our shows anywhere. So recently, Level Plain Poem came to thank me because he's got a limited capacity to reach an audience also, being in the exact same arena, but was grateful to little old me for sharing his video because he actually got people coming to his comment section that may not have come previously because they're not being shown his videos and they're subscribed to him. And people have told me that too. Oh yeah, I forgot about that guy. I'm subscribed to him and I haven't seen a video for ages. I'm like, he released one yesterday. Well, I haven't seen it. No, because not even my own subscriber base get presented my videos anymore. So egregious. The censorship's off the scale.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
It's crazy because there's some topics that I haven't watched in years, but I'll still get reminded when they're having a show, but not when you're having a show. That's very strange to me. I got to keep looking for. But let me ask you a question: when you put the show on your second channel, only 20 people show up, but down the road, people do view it, right? You get more views on it, don't you?
I mean, yes, it will pick up a certain number of views because, again, people are subscribed to that channel and they're going to come across it when they flick through their subscriptions. But it just doesn't reach them through their subscriptions feed. That's to say they're not just offered it. So as you're just looking on your homepage, you just scroll through a load of random videos and it's produced based on what you're subscribed to and what you've watched. There might be a few exceptions that are similar to what you've watched, and YouTube want to encourage you to watch a wider array of videos, but based on what they think you'll watch. Well, not for me. Doesn't matter if you've watched 5 Flat Earth videos, they're not going to present me next to you in your homepage. Now, it might be that you manually go into your own subscription feed and then look down, and even then you won't find me. You'll have to go to me manually. But because there are literally almost 10,000 people that are subscribed to that channel, there's still going to be the odd half a dozen or dozen that'll go after the show's finished and find it and then watch it because they can, or they're going out of their way to find material because they're not being presented with it.
Yeah, but even back in 2016, I didn't know who you were until David Weiss mentioned you, and I specifically Googled you and looked for you. I didn't get it. So this guy, Charlie Handsome, that just happened to find you, that is strange. He got lucky.
Well, so speaking of David Weiss, I mean, back in the day, I've got to be brutally honest, Jaron was far more frustrating when I tried to liaised with him than Dave. Dave's standoffish nature and dismissive nature isn't anywhere near as egregious as calling me a scammer and overtly trying to dissuade people from viewing my material while simultaneously creating an aura that I'm a scammer. Like, quote, Jaron, Nathan's a scammer, end quote, Jaron. Well, Dave Weiss has never actually done that. You know, on one occasion said we're not watching Nathan Oakley when I was going out of my way to produce material for his app, which pissed me off royally. But aside from that, Dave's never gone out of his way to dissuade people from talking about what I talk about or seeing my material. So from that point of view, Dave isn't necessarily a lost cause. Whereas Jaron, I was constantly being told by the people around me, give up. You're going to start coming across as a shill if you continue to try and bang that drum with Jaron, because he's off the rails in terms of his rhetoric and his claims that you're a scammer. You know, it's too much for you to still try and hold out hope that you can bring him back onto the straight and narrow. So from that perspective, I was always a lot more frustrated with Jaron than I ever was with David Weiss. Furthermore, in terms of David Weiss, as I called it earlier, being a bit lazy with his rhetoric, that isn't necessarily akin to him being shilly with his rhetoric, is it? He's not detrimental beyond being old school in his terminologies and his references. That's not detrimental in the same way Jin's not detrimental. He could easily argue for how beneficial his way of doing things is, and I'm sure Dave Weiss would be the same. In contrast, saying I'm a bleeding scammer, that ain't going to help anybody, is it?
No.
Dave Weiss has actually got some love for a change off this show. Makes a change, doesn't it?
Yeah, because in actuality, he does try his best to put his best foot forward all the time. And I think that's his motivation there. But like I said before, you know, there are many roads to getting there. So that's it. You know, got to let everybody do what they do. That's it. They'll get there in the end.
Reminds me of a quote from Sean Connery in The Rock. I won't swear, but I'll paraphrase the quote. Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and shag the prom queen.
Yeah, don't worry. I get to shag the prom queen, don't you worry.
Me too. Right, is there anything else anyone wants to add? We're going to round out. It's going to be a couple of days break as it's Friday. Friday! So, yeah, no live shows tomorrow or Sunday. But I have started rescheduling the second channel. So I've had a little bit of a turnaround, and it's been done for a couple of weeks now, so it will start kicking in the next couple of weeks. Which is to say that on a Monday and Tuesday, I think this is how I've done it, I've started to not publish one of the 5 shows on that day. So rather than cannibalizing what I feel are the better shows based on audience participation, you get more people watching on a Monday, Tuesday. And I'd rather keep that momentum going after the weekend by not having a second show on the second channel 8 hours later. So what I've done is I've basically pushed all of the uncut and after shows forward by 2 days so that they now overlap into the weekend. So in other words, the schedule on the second channel has changed from Monday to Friday in the evening after the live shows on this channel to being from a Wednesday through Sunday. So there's a 7-day-a-week flat earth debate availability, just not necessarily on the same channel. So Monday, Tuesday, moving forward from maybe a couple of weeks from now onwards, we'll only have the live show that goes out on this channel. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there'll be 2 shows, one in the morning for you in the States, evening if you're on Australia, or middle of the day for us in the UK. And then Saturday and Sunday, there'll be the uncut and after show on the second channel, but no live show. So Monday, Tuesday, live show only on this channel. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, both live and uncut and after show on this and the second channel. And then Saturday and Sunday, there'll be uncut and after show on the second channel. And then back to Monday, live shows only. So I've changed the schedule around a little bit so that there's always a show running on every single day. Because previously there was no Saturday or Sunday shows.
Yeah, good continuity.
Say that again, Nate.
Get out of here. Great continuity. It's good.
Any more for
That's how
anybody?
it should be.
Anybody from
That's how it should
Discord?
be.
there's not going to be another opportunity for a couple of days, so I'm happy to stay live if there's something pressing that people want to talk about from the Discord server, and you just haven't felt that there's been an opportunity so far. No. Last call.
If I can just,
Yeah.
hang on, if I can just give a big shout to all those in the Discord live stream now. Sorry, I forgot to mention earlier. You know, thanks for being with us, as I can say, and I'll be joining you soon anyway. All right, guys. Thanks.
Well, I just went in the chat, and they're really active. You know, appealing to consensus and telling us we have no measurements. We have a special knowledge, not a special knowledge, just an understanding of measurement, like he does too, right, Scatman? Whoever you are.
Who? You talking about the live stream chat?
Yeah, his name is Scatman. I just jumped in to see what's going on, and yeah.
What annoys me when they say they've got no...
I'm a scat man.
It's when they say they've got no measurement, there is measurements. They're not our measurements. There's just measurements. We've got these latitude measurements, which is a elevation angle. If you know what one of them is, go and research it. It does require a horizontal baseline. You can use sea level for that horizontal baseline, and that's how we map the territory. Yeah, so there is measurements, and as I said before, sea level. Mean sea level is used for all elevation profiles all over the Earth. So there's loads of measurements.
Right, last
Yeah,
call.
that's why I said to him, we don't have a special knowledge. We just understand measurement, like you do too.
I'm a scat man. Right, last call. Anybody from the Discord server? Go ahead, Mia. AE Mia.
Yeah, I got yesterday, just real quick here. Yesterday, very popular channel from a theologian scholar passed away recently, but they still run the channel. Made this anti-flat Earth post, and I just wanted to read what they said here. So I'm quoting here. The name of the channel is Michael Heiser, and very popular with in the Christian circles. And here, start quoting. The stupidity of modern flat Earth belief is transparent in today's world. Space flight, really flight between hemispheres, satellite communications, space photography, and any photography showing the Earth's curvature, etc., shows the idea to be utter nonsense. And that's before getting into the nuts and bolts science. Yet some people think they need to believe to have a true Bible, the mindless, simplistic, realistic at its worst. So I just wanted to, that just came out yesterday of this anti-flat Earth rhetoric, that this is the evidence they presented.
Well, there's plenty of so-called evidence being presented to normies that would suggest they're on a ball. Now, if you actually listen to what the guy's saying, he's saying, I believe in the photographs I am presented with as being takeable as read. They are as they are, and they are showing curvature. Therefore, these pictures are demonstrable evidence of Earth being a sphere. Now we go, but they're not pictures. You've never been to a sky vacuum. You can't go to space. Outer space is a second law of thermodynamics violation. All the flights are measured off surface level. Flights are running in straight and level flight with respect to parallel, eye level, and surface level, measured off sea level, and utilising maps and horizontal distances that are created with elevation angles measured off surface level, and distances along the surface level. So all measurements of Earth are flat, but all the pictures from Big Daddy government in a place that you're not visiting show you that it's a ball. Well, I can totally empathise with a guy that sees pictures from liars and says, well, that's a done deal. That's why they exist. Nobody's going to question the I haven't been there or taken these pictures if they want to believe in Big Daddy government's rhetoric when being lied to. Now, we lean into the measurements and practical application of the surface and its flatness to stop you from dying. But when you ask the same person who's leaning into the photos of Earth from space, a second law of thermodynamics violation, what use they are, what do you use these photos for in practical terms? Other than to believe you're on a ball. Can you give me a practical use for them? And the answer is no. There is no practical purpose in providing any of the list of evidences that we utilised in that post. There is no practical application to a claim that we've been in orbital motion. What's the practical application? It's a mathematical derivation, and the mathematical derivation came from flat Earth measurements in the first instance. So I can empathise that people would want to believe in Earth curve, and the standard is at surface level, Formica deep, seemingly very strong. Well, these people, these men, these sometimes Christian men, have been to a sky vacuum, turned their cameras back on the globe Earth and taken pictures of it. And then you're into, why would they lie? Well, who cares why they'd lie? Earth's measured flat. Their altitude would be described from surface level, perpendicular to a plane of reference. The distance that they travel would be flat and linear. So your standard is now, based on the measurements, seemingly woeful and not verifiable. You're not taking these pictures and you can't verify them. So it's purely based on their belief. They have a faith in what Big Daddy government's religious viewpoint is presented with images, because they're not photographs. Shout out to Himsake, who says, happy Flat Earth Friday, everyone. Really appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much, Himsake. Any more for any more? Nope.
To Saturday show, because we have no more ball buses. I mean, we're going to have to fill it in somehow.
You're not the boss of me. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be like how ball busters got started, right?
I frankly didn't like doing Ballbusters. It meant I didn't get a weekend ever. So now I get a weekend. You know, I'm going to take my wife for a curry this Saturday.
Probably supersedes everything in England.
And then you can play with your children as well, you know, because the weekends are great for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
You're a father, remember?
Stolen away from me for many, many years.
Exactly.
I mean, I was led to believe that I'd get half, that it was half mine. I mean, I never saw any of that money.
It was always hard to engage with ball busters because it is Saturday and you do have plans, and a lot of times ball busters just turn into not disrespected because the show was good for what it was, but a lot of times it was just on in the background and you couldn't really give any focus to it.
And it's an Adam and Brian show. Let's be for real now.
Yeah, it was a little long-winded. Oh, and I don't want to be a downer, but I was on YouTube earlier this morning. I guess the Morgile's wife passed away yesterday, so that's kind of a bummer.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh, that's terrible.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I got to reach out to him.
Oh, no.
A lot of people give him a hard time because of his situation and stuff, but when that dude is on, he's really, really good. He's good with the sex and arguments. And
that's freaking heartbreaking.
He's very underrated.
How did she die?
She looked very sick. He posted pictures of her, and she looked like she was like 60 pounds. I don't know if she had some kind of an illness or what, but she didn't look healthy. I know she was in it because the last videos I saw from a couple months ago, she like broke a hip or something and was in and out of the hospital a lot. And I guess he just found her he thought she was sleeping, but then he said that her eyes were open, so he was talking to her. And it took him a few minutes to realize that she wasn't responding. That's when he found out she passed away. So I guess it happened sometime while she was sleeping.
Wow, that's terrible news. How heartbreaking.
Yeah, he's a good dude, I think.
Yeah, Morgul's a great
I like
dude.
Morgul.
That's sad. That's really sad. Our hearts go out to Morgul. Rest in peace.
The Morgul was the best part of that show they had there.
Yeah, because when he was on the Ballbusters and that, he was really good. I always used to think he had a cold, though, because his nose was always rubbed up, you know. I was thinking, bloody, when he's continuous cold, this guy. The Morgul.
Right, on that
But he had a
somber
great
note,
delivery.
I'm going
Go
to
ahead.
round out the live show. Terrible note to round out on, but there we go. Such is life. Our hearts go out to Morgile and his loss of his wife. Sorry to hear it. Really, really terrible news. But with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.